How do you plan to address the homeless issue that seems to be plaguing our community?
So I've talked to United Way. Their numbers are between 600 and 800 homeless people here in Denton County. It's not like it's perceived that people say, oh, we have thousands and thousands. It's not. It's 600 to 800 people. I visited our Daily Bread. They're doing an amazing job of not only having and giving wraparound services, but just trying to regulate, trying to help, trying to make sure that they're giving, meeting these people where they're at. All of these things, we have a very generous community. We have, I currently sit on the Community Service Advisory Committee. We are a very generous community, and so there's lots of things that we're putting into place. And we need to be smart. We need to be seeking partnerships with other cities. We need to make sure that the county gives the money that they pledged to give, because they still haven't done. We need to make sure that we're finding ways to help these people in a respectful way, in a genuine way, to get on their feet. But it's not something that should be the only focus. 48% of all of our homes in Denton are Alice homes. That's the bigger problem as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jill? How do you plan to address the homeless issue that seems to be plaguing our community?
I'll say as I go door to door, knocking on doors and asking people what their biggest issue is, and at any in-homes I have, I would say homeless is at the top. There's good and bad, I think, with what the city is doing regarding our homeless population. And our homeless population is kind of a broad term, but we're talking about a lot of different people. Those that are one paycheck behind, those with drug or alcohol addiction, and then those with mental health issues. And then we've also, there's a criminal element of those that are choosing to come here. And I say this not lightly, I say this because this is what I'm being told by our firefighters, by our police officers. I think that it's essential that we do have services with our shelters to try to help people get back on their feet, get the medication they need, the help they need, workforce training. However, I also know that we are going to have to draw a line somewhere. There are some in the homeless shelter that have been there since the day it opened, and I think that that's not something that we can continually take care of as far as everyone in the nation. So we have a lot of work to do.
Thank you. Erica, if you respond to that same question, how do you plan to address the homeless issue that seems to be plaguing our community?
So I definitely think that we need to reevaluate our strategy. It's a very complicated, multifaceted situation that we find ourselves in. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You have a lot of mental health issues going untreated. You have substance issues. You have moms and kids escaping domestic violence and things like that. So we really need to kind of take a look at, Denton is doing a lot. They're doing more than anybody. We've spent $13 million on the shelter. We work with some phenomenal resources, but it is going to get to a point where we have to look at the financial burden that we're relieving other cities and counties from. I've had friends that have joked around and said, yeah, we don't have homeless, we send them to Denton. And so that doesn't really seem fair. It's not fair to the taxpayers, and it's not fair to our businesses, because a lot of people, particularly around the square, this is a situation that affects them every day.
Thank you, Erica. Brandon, if you would answer the same question with regard to how do you plan to address the homeless issue that seems to be plaguing our community?
I was waiting for someone to say it. No one said it, so I guess I'll say it. Homelessness is different from folks who might or might not be on drugs, from folks who might not have criminal elements. But when you put them all in one bucket, it's easy to see why the questioner referred to it as plague. People aren't homeless usually through faults of their own. There are a lot of different reasons that we don't have time to get into why people are homeless, but how do we address it? Remember I said in my opening, the third most important thing that I think we need to address going forward in the next council is making sure we have a better relationship with our federal delegation and our state delegation. Our state delegation, we know when they go into session next year, is probably going to have about $21 billion of surplus money. And last session we had $38 billion, and none of that money came to Denton to address this issue. We have to have a better relationship with our folks in Austin so they can understand the issues as we see them on the ground. Same thing with our folks going to Washington. We need help. The only way we're going to address this is if we have help from our other cities, from the county, from the state, and the federal government. It's going to take every level of government to help with this issue.
Thank you. Mayor Hudspeth?
There's a number of different things, but one of the things that I'm proud of is I volunteer at the shelter and visit there regularly. And one of the things they told me one of those visits some months back, they needed a fence. They needed a fence on the end to help with security, to keep people, because they need to take their dogs out, that sort of thing, but it was open. And so I worked with the local person, Greg Johnson, and I said, hey, I need some money. And I went and talked to Pat Smith. I said, hey, I need some labor. And he has a sweat team, and they said, we're in. Greg Johnson said, I'll go find the money. And so they found the money. There's a video about it, but we put that fence up at no cost to the city, and it benefited the shelter. The shelter then also, Wendy, shout out to her, she had her son do his Boy Scout project, so now they have a dog run for big dogs and medium-sized dogs, and then the city manager started a work program that allows people to go to work at the landfill and at the auto mechanic shop. So we're trying to give people a hand up, and there's a lot of other things we're doing, but short on time, I'm happy to talk about those afterwards. Thank you.
If you'll stay there for this next, begin answers to this next question.